Hare Krishna. I'd like to welcome everyone for this morning's Sri Prabhupada Lilamrita reading session. Begin with the Mangalachan prayers. Om Jnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurun-militam yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam yena bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuttapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitanscha Namao Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatari. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpati Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Reading from Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, Chapter 21, chapter entitled Beyond the Lower East Side. The Gate Theatre was a small auditorium on 2nd Avenue, a about 10 blocks north of the storefront, said Swarupa Maharaj. We rented the Gate Theatre for one night. It was a dark place, painted all black. The theatre was almost empty. We had an easel on stage with a painting of the Panchatattva. Swamiji spoke, and his talk became very technical. Pointing and referring back to the paintings, he described each member of the Panchatattva. He first explained that Lord Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appearing as a pure devotee. Lord Nityananda, to the right of Lord Chaitanya, is his first expansion. And to the right of Lord Nityananda is Advaita, who is the incarnation of the Supreme Lord. To the left of Lord Chaitanya, he said, is Gadadhar, the internal energy, and Srivas is the perfect devotee. During the talk, I was thinking that this was maybe too elevated for the audience. But I was sitting close beside Swamiji, and like the other devotees, I was really enjoying being with him. After the gate engagement, Swamiji and his disciples agreed that it was a waste of time trying to rent theatres. It was better to go to Tompkins Square Park. That was the best place for attracting people, and it didn't cost anything. First of all, my sincere gratitude to all of you for accepting me here in Sri Mayapur Dham. No words can ever describe the great fortune that I am being blessed here to be seated in the same hall where 50 years ago His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, graced this beautiful place. Srila Prabhupada's personality is like an unlimited ocean. And just like in an ocean, the waves keep coming. So wherever we read, either it is about Srila Prabhupada or anything written by Srila Prabhupada, we get to experience these different waves of Srila Prabhupada's transcendental qualities. Yesterday, if anyone, all of you were here, I think most of you were here, and we saw one of the qualities of Srila Prabhupada as described in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vayam tuna vitrapyama uttama shloka vikrame yashvinvatam rasagyanam Svadu Svadu Pade Pade. Prabhupada himself was a perfect example of this verse. And we described how, despite of all engagements, busy engagements on a Janmashtami day, Srila Prabhupada was so eager to hear about Krishna. Prabhupada was such a personality who was satatam, as we say, satatam kirtayanto mam. That a person is always engaged, externally and internally, in glorifying Krishna. And he taught us by his own example that the best way of glorifying Krishna is by engaging our hearts, our senses, our intelligence, our abilities in serving Krishna. Glorification is most meaningful when it leads to transformation of our hearts. Bhakti is the most dynamic process of transformation. And anyone who performs devotional service in a very heartfelt way, from the core of one's heart, definitely will experience a transformation. And this transformation is both ways. It is for the person who is performing the devotional service, as well as those who are around that person. We read in the Lilamrita how from the day when Srila Prabhupada set his foot in the Boston Harbor in 1965, his meditation was how I can give Krishna consciousness to everyone. And it wasn't easy at all. The Lilamrita pages described so beautifully. So we're so grateful to Swarupa Maharaj for giving us this beautiful biography of Srila Prabhupada, describing every single detail. What are the struggles that Srila Prabhupada went through? Talking about the struggles, I would like to tell you all a very beautiful episode from the Lilamrita. You all might have already heard and read it. Srila Prabhupada painstakingly had completed the entire Bhagavad Gita translations and purports. This is way before he even had taken sannyas, and he was still actively preaching as a grihastha in India. He was still working as a businessman. He was a pharmacist. So he was representing the Allahabad pharmacy, Prayag pharmacy, and he was going city to city doing his business. But at the same time, because of his sincere attachment to the words of his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada was so eager to give the purports and translations in the English language of the Bhagavad Gita. So this is an episode which shows Srila Prabhupada's untiring determination and dedication despite of all odds. Prabhupada wrote almost 1,000 pages by his hand. It was all handwritten. He didn't have no typewriters or computers in those days. He hand wrote the entire Gita with translations and purports. And then he was trying to find a sponsor who could help him publish it. And finally, when Prabhupada was in Chennai, he met with a wealthy businessman, and this person agreed to publish. And he said, you bring your manuscripts and I'll publish it. So this was a major breakthrough for Srila Prabhupada's efforts to preach Krishna consciousness, that his first book, Bhagavad Gita as it is, was going to be published. When Prabhupada came back to his home, to his residence in Allahabad, he came to his room and he was looking for his manuscript, which he had written so painstakingly, spending months and months of dedicated hours, and that was gone. And he was looking everywhere, and the manuscript had disappeared. And then after some time, Srila Prabhupada came to know that his own family members, who were never very supportive to his work, had just given the manuscript. In India, you just throw away old paper, as garbage. It's probably sold it. They call it Raddi in India. When you collect a lot of newspapers and you collect all old books and papers that you feel are useless. So Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita landed in a pile of garbage, and they just sold that for some few rupees. Now, my dear devotees, many times we also face situations like that we try to render some service and there's no recognition. On the contrary, there's somebody who's always pointing out faults, and somebody's criticizing us. You didn't do like that, you're supposed to do it like this. And in most cases, it is seen that we just don't want to do that service. Because we say that I'm not meant for this. I better do something else. Isn't that true? We just want to go away from that place. We don't want to be in that area. We don't want to be around those devotees. I just give up. But Srila Prabhupada never gave up. Prabhupada could have thought, well, this is Krishna's desire. Maybe he doesn't want me to publish. Maybe he wants me to do something else. No. Prabhupada began writing again. So whenever you hold the Bhagavad Gita as it is in your hand, remember the hard work this man has given to give this most valuable wisdom of the Vedas available for us. So this is our beloved Srila Prabhupada, who, despite of his age, despite of any of the external impediments, was never ever hampered. He was always eager. He goes to this theater and nobody shows up. That's another wonderful quality. In the beginning days, when Srila Prabhupada was not known to anyone, he was just a simple Swami coming from India. And no one understood what Srila Prabhupada spoke. His English was so accented that people could not understand. Many of his disciples, in their memoirs, they write that in the beginning days, first of all, we were all high with LSDs, and so even if somebody was really speaking sensible, something valuable, we wouldn't have understood. On top of that, it was Srila Prabhupada, whose accent was so difficult for us to understand. So we would just sit there nodding our heads, and we had no idea what he was talking about. But there was one thing that all of them unanimously agreed, that we knew that this person has genuine love in his heart. And it was that genuine love of Srila Prabhupada's heart that touched them even in the deepest modes of ignorance. And they decided, even if we don't understand, we know that whatever he's speaking is for our ultimate good. So let us just go on serving. Let us just go on helping him. Kaunteya pratijanihi name bhakta pranashyati. Krishna has boldly declared in the Gita, O Kunti Putra, you declare that anyone who surrendered to me, he will always be successful. But again, that surrender has to be of the highest degree, as Srila Prabhupada had exemplified. Srila Prabhupada's transcendental position, Hare Krishna, Dakli Mataji ki jai. What a fortune to have such a wonderful disciple of Srila Prabhupada amongst us, apart from Swarupa and others. I would like to share a beautiful episode about the transcendental potency of Srila Prabhupada's presence. This was, I think, in 1972 or 73. Prabhupada was once, along with his disciples, in Kumbh Mela. Kumbh Mela is one of the most popular of all religious gatherings in India. Millions and millions of people, they come to take a dip in the confluence of the three most holy rivers, Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati. So Srila Prabhupada was also present in Prayag, and they had built a nice tent for Prabhupada and his, all the disciples. And it was an Ekadashi day. And Srila Prabhupada was speaking about the glories of Ekadashi to all devotees. And towards the end, Srila Prabhupada said something very interesting. He said on Ekadashi, we should have lotus pods fried in ghee. Now, I don't know if you all know what is lotus pods. Like in India, they call makhana. There's a white balls. You have those here? Have you ever seen? Lotus pods. And they're very good on Ekadashi. So Prabhupada is talking about lotus pods fried in ghee. And right at that moment, a sadhu in white clothes, along with the little boy, walks in. And he comes and he bows down to Srila Prabhupada and he puts a packet, a cloth bag in front of Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada opens it. And can you guess what's in it? Lotus pods fried in ghee. And Prabhupada smiles and says, see, I just spoke and Krishna has provided it. Now, who was this man? This was a person who was actually an old friend of Prabhupada. When Prabhupada used to serve, he was preaching in Kanpur. At that time, Prabhupada used to go to different homes, and he was a priest in one of the businessman's house, this man. And Prabhupada met him maybe, years ago. And they had some good friendship, and Prabhupada recognized him. So Prabhupada asked him, did you go to the Sangam? Did you go and take your dip in the Sangam? And while replying, Srila Prabhupada, he took out his plate, and took out, a tumbler with water, with purified water. And he said, why should I go to the Sangam, Srila Prabhupada? When actual confluence of all the holy tirthas is right here at your lotus feet. And he requested Prabhupada to put his lotus feet into that plate, and he started performing a Charan Abhishek of Prabhupada's lotus feet. And all the devotees were so excited because they didn't have the permission to do anything like that. And they were excited that now we are all going to get Prabhupada's Charanamrita. So Prabhupada very happily agreed, and this person performed an Abhishek Prabhupada's lotus feet. And then Prabhupada looked at the young boy. He was just about 4 or 5 years old. He said, "Give me your boy. I'll make him an Acharya." And he was not expecting that. So he smiled and said, "Prabhupada, yes, he's yours, but he's too young. And besides, I am still training him in all the Sanskrit grammar so that he can fulfill, when he grows up, he can become a Pandit, and he can refute the Shankar Bhashyas." And he was a Ramanandi Sampradaya sadhu. And one of the missions of the Ramanandis is to refute the impersonalistic Mayavad philosophy of Shankara. So he thought that I want to train my boy for all this. So Prabhupada said, "It's not required. Just give your boy, I'll make him an Acharya." He said, "Prabhupada, I will give him to you. But he's still only 5 years old, he'll be a nuisance to you." And Prabhupada smiled. And then Prabhupada rubbed his hand on the little boy's head and smiled. And then after a few minutes, this Ramananda, the sadhu, he left along with the boy. So this was probably a normal occurrence when Prabhupada used to meet people. Devotees would see the Prabhupada would, welcome them, talk to them, bless them. This was something very normal. So nobody remembered this episode after that. 20 years later, some of our devotees, they were again, now Prabhupada has already left the planet. Prabhupada is no more here. Some devotees went back to Allahabad, and there was a big news, there was a talk everywhere in the Kumbh Mela that there is a very effulgent young sannyasi in the Ramanandi Sampradaya who has been successful in getting the entire Ramanandi Sampradaya together. Because in the last few, in a decade or so, the Ramananda Sampradaya was all breaking apart. There were clashes, they were not together, they were not united. And then there came this young sannyasi who was only about, 25 or so. And he was successful in bringing everyone together. So they had a huge pandal, and in that pandal they had a high raised platform on Simhasana on which this young 25-year-old sannyasi was seated. And there were all these other 3 times of his age. There were sannyasis and senior devotees fanning him and giving him all the respect. And at that point, our ISKCON devotees, which had a few sannyasis and other devotees, they entered. And as soon as this young sannyasi saw our ISKCON sannyasis, he stood up with his folded hands and he offered his dandavats. Everybody was surprised. And when he stood up back, he started reciting beautiful mantras in glorification of the sannyasis, sannyas mantras. And after he completed the sannyas mantras, he took permission of all his other seniors and said, "I would like to recite some spontaneous words that are coming to my heart." And he composed some beautiful Sanskrit poetry spontaneously. And what he said in his poetry was, "I will not be offending anyone, not even our own founder Acharya, if I say there never has been a great Acharya, and never will there be a greater Acharya than A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, who was instrumental in spreading Krishna consciousness all around the world. And everyone started clapping, yes, and everyone was acknowledging, yes, what you have said is perfectly true. And then he called the devotees near, and then one of the devotees was Atmatattva Prabhu, a wonderful disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He said, Atmatattva Prabhu, do you remember me? I am the same boy who was blessed by Srila Prabhupada. He rubbed his hand on my head. Unfortunately, my father could not give me to Srila Prabhupada at that time, but just by rubbing his hand on my head, he actually made me an Acharya. And he, with folded hands, with all humility in his heart, he said, whatever I have been able to achieve is only by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. This is the glory of this wonderful personality. And Srila Prabhupada was an ocean of love and mercy. Not only with all these extremely important personalities that would visit him. Many times there were diplomats coming to meet him. There were journalists, there were so many important personalities. Wherever Prabhupada went, he spoke to so many important people. Scientists would come to him. And sometimes some simple mothers would come with their little babies. I'll tell you one beautiful story. Prabhupada was in Vrindavan, seated in his quarters in Vrindavan, and there was a lot of devotees who were coming to meet Prabhupada, important person, God brothers. Vrindavan was always filled with guests. And there was one Mataji, disciple of Srila Prabhupada, who came to just take darshan, and along with her was a 2-year-old daughter, 2 years old. And as little children are, sometimes they start crawling here and there, and this little girl, she came near Prabhupada's table and started playing with Prabhupada's papers. And Prabhupada said, no, don't touch this. And then the mother, of course, she immediately grabbed, and then after a few seconds, the child was very restless. The child didn't want to be in the mother's arms. And so that the child would not create too much commotion, so she just, she didn't forcibly keep the child. And the child was playing around, and then the child somehow reached Prabhupada's lotus feet. It was under the table. I think Prabhupada had his lotus feet was stretched out, and he was sitting like that. And she grabbed Prabhupada's lotus feet. Now, obviously, Prabhupada is talking, Prabhupada is, busy. So everyone would think that, hey, he's disturbing Prabhupada. So the mother again pulled the child, and Prabhupada said, it is nice to discipline your child. Your child should not touch my papers, but she can touch my lotus feet because they are hers. Srila Prabhupada ki. Now see, here is one of the greatest acharyas, the purest souls, who has traveled all over the world, who has given Krishna consciousness to hundreds and thousands of people. But when there was a moment where he had to personally exhibit his love and his compassion to a 2-year-old child, Prabhupada didn't just, ignore that he just take that child away. He made it special. That mother was in tears. And till date, that mother, I'm sure, is, whenever she comes in front of Srila Prabhupada, she remembers that beautiful episode where Prabhupada showered such special mercy. So, I personally feel that we all, as long as we are breathing, we have this supreme opportunity to become a small part of history. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, wherever he set his foot, he created history. New Mayapur Dham is such a special and important place. Srila Prabhupada very lovingly has blessed this beautiful dham. And being seated here at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, my heart again and again bows down to Prabhupada, begging for his mercy, that please allow me to be, of some service to you here in New Mayapur Dham. Because it is only through our sincere, dedicated efforts, our unanimous efforts, when all of us will come together and glorify Srila Prabhupada by doing something very wonderful here. In the all of Europe, this is the only other place Srila Prabhupada personally came. And Prabhupada is always present. Prabhupada in his beautiful deity form is also not different from his transcendental Vapu form. And I can tell you an amazing story to illustrate what I'm saying. This happened in New Vrindavan. How many of you have been to New Vrindavan, West Virginia? I'm sure Mandakini Mataji has, Prabhu has. Devotees built a beautiful palace of gold for Srila Prabhupada. It's a beautiful masterpiece of architecture. When they built it, it was so popular all over America. They called it the Taj Mahal of the West. It was so popular. We used to get bus loads of Westerners, all American people would come to see the beautiful monument that the Hare Krishna people had built for their Acharya. Now, it's a bitter story, but I'll just cut it short and tell you that New Vrindavan went through so many controversies because of the leaders. And it came to a point that the entire community was breaking apart. And it is during that time when the whole community, because of the deviations by the leader, was falling apart, this episode happened. A nice, beautiful, sunny day, a weekend, probably it was, a Sunday or a Saturday. And there was a group of Westerners who came to the Palace of Gold. And it was about 6 or 7 people in their 70s or so. And there was this one lady who was a little behind in the group, and the group was all over. And she comes in front of Srila Prabhupada And there's nobody in the palace, in the hall. It's empty, and she's just looking here and there. And then she hears a voice, "Take my shoe." And now she's wondering, what is this noise? She's looking here and there, and she thought somebody's talking to someone else. And then she ignored it for the first time, and "Take my shoe." And then she heard it once again. And she realized that it is this person. This person is talking to me. And then she just noticed that that was Srila Prabhupada's shoes. They had silver Prabhupada's shoes that, they had made, and they were kept there. And she had such an impelling desire that, a force would take my shoes. So she just took Prabhupada's shoe and put it in her bag. And she could not believe what she was doing. And she walked away. And then, the group left, and everybody was wondering. In those days, there were no, security cameras or anything to see who did that. And everyone's wondering, where's Prabhupada's shoe? There's only one shoe. And they kept looking, but nobody could find it. So they got another one. Almost 4 to 5 years later, the same lady comes back to Vrindavan. And she's very nervous. She says, "I would like to speak to your temple president. And I would like to confess something." I said, "What would you like to confess?" She comes to the temple president and says that, "Please forgive me for what I did 4 years ago. I was in your temple, and I was in front of this personality, and he said, 'Take my shoe, take my shoe.' And I didn't know what to do, so I took the shoe. And then, a week ago, the same person came in a dream, and he said, 'Return my shoe, because now I'm back in my palace.' And said, I could not make head or tail of anything. It was such a powerful force that asked me to take the shoe. I took it. And then the voice came back and said, 'Return my shoe.' So now you're back with the shoe. And she just begged forgiveness and left. But the devotees understood. Srila Prabhupada very emphatically, he declared that when there are offenses, when there are deviations, I'm not going to be there. And he left. Through this pastime, Prabhupada showed all of us that he's very much present right here. Hearing everything, witnessing everything as he was 50 years ago. And then when he came back, when he said, that was the time when Bhakti Maharaj, Niranjan Maharaj, Radhanath Maharaj had worked so hard to bring New Vrindavan back into the ISKCON family. And New Vrindavan was restored back into the ISKCON family, because it was, before that they were thrown out and they were not a part of ISKCON anymore. So this is such a fantastic story that Prabhupada, he performed the pastime to show us that he is very much here. And this is our chance. We should never think that, I was not present 50 years ago, so my role is not that important. Every single person who comes in his presence can feel his divinity. One last story I'll tell and I'll close. This also happened way after Prabhupada left from the planet. And this is a true story that happened in the ISKCON Juhu temple in Mumbai. It was a day of Ekadashi, and one guest, not a devotee, a guest walks in, and she sees it's afternoon, the temple is closed, the darshan is closed, and nobody's there, right? The temple hall is empty. So she sees there's a person sitting. So she goes to that person and says, "Can I get some prasad?" And she didn't think that was a deity or anything. She thought, "Can I get some prasad?" And you will not believe, this is what she told later on, that the person stood and went inside and got me some prasad. And she comes back to tell that the prasad that I got was so intoxicating, was so unbelievably delicious, that I had to come back. And they said, who gave you prasad? And who gave you laddu? Because it's Ekadashi, we don't make laddus on Ekadashi. So this person, he gave me prasad. And seeing this lady's, honesty and the exhilaration that she was feeling by having Prabhupada's mercy, nobody doubted it. So the reason I'm sharing all this is that Prabhupada, along with our dear Krishna Balaram, Radha Govinda Madhav, Gaur Nitai, is waiting for all of us to participate in history. Srila Prabhupada proclaimed that there will be one day hundreds of millions of people who will come to New Mayapur Dham. And before it is too late, time is ticking away. All of us are getting old. So let us come together and do something wonderful for Prabhupada. Thank you very much. Shri Prabhupada ki jai.